Welcome back. We get into our big stories, and one of those matters we're going to be really looking into the raft of measures as proposed by Mr. President in the 28th address. What does this really mean? Joining us is Papani. We'll be having some industry players join us, from movie producers to other people in the sector. But Papani Ashale joins us now. Papani, if you can hear me, where exactly are you, and what can you report on the back of the address yesterday by Mr. President?
Some people, we can tell that it's because of the bus stop just over there, because of the way the vehicles are stopping. That's why it creates some kind of jam when vehicles get to this side. So especially for those who are turning slides, right,
to interact with some of them, who would share with me exactly that after 2 years of the land borders being closed, how did it impact them? How did it affect their businesses? And again, their travel between Ghana and that of Nigeria. So let me interact with them. Let me start here. My brother, what's your name?
My name The closure of the border affected me because some goods that we order is be seized from border because the door is not open. So because of that, some other businesses that we are doing, it makes slow. So then right now I hear that they opened the door. So I'm happy about it because now business will be moving the way it used to move before. So that's what I say. I'm happy.
So what he's saying is that first of all, he's happy it's been opened. But again, in that 2 years, the quantum of goods that used to flow between Nigeria through the border to where he works has really come down. But he's happy that probably he can smile at the end of the day. Let me come to you. What's your name?
My name is Pascal.
Okay, Pascal. So your brother mentions that the quantum of business he was doing came down. How about you? How did it affect you, the closure of the border?
It affected everywhere. It affected everybody because now you can't travel. You can't travel. You are facing many things in road. Because I hear say they have already opened the border. I'm very happy. I'm very happy for that. Thank you.
So for your business, what would this mean to you? Let's say before COVID-19, how often were you traveling between Nigeria and Ghana? And because of the
Well, we're going back to Papani, who is walking the streets of the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, getting some responses from ordinary Ghanaians on the back of this development. But let's go on Zoom now and interact with our guests, Dr. Fred Addo, Bono East Director of Health, and Peter Sedufia, a movie producer. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. Did I hear a response? I just want to be sure I have both of you.
Yes, good morning.
Is that Doc?
Yes, please.
Right. Can I hear from Peter Sedufia? Mr. Sedufia, are you with us? Right. Right. Okay, so I can hear from you, Mr. Sedufia. It's just unstable, patchy, I think because of the internet connection. So I'll start with Dr. Fred Addo. Now, you are Bono East Director of Health. What is your initial response, quick reaction to these developments? I had interacted with Dr. Patrick Kumwabaje, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, on the back of calls for land borders to be reopened and all of that. We're finally there. Wearing of nose masks is no longer mandatory. It's now optional and all of that. What are your quick reactions to the 28th address by Mr. President?
I think this is what we were looking and waiting for. Remember when we had the discussion the other time, we were looking at the factors and then we're thinking, was it now the opportune time for us to go back to some of the policies that we have put down? I think that's where the discussion was. I quite remember even Director General came in and then also added his voice that, look, we are looking at all the possible factors and then appropriately we will take an action. So I think this is what we were looking for, looking at what is pertaining across the globe and also at the local level. And I think it came in timely.
What for you are the upsides, the most crucial measures that have been adopted? Is it, for example, at KIA and the easing or taking away of some of the tests? Is it about the reopening of the land borders? Does it have to do with the fact that people no longer have to observe full protocols when it comes to mask wearing and all of that? What is the most incisive one for you, or the most crucial one?
I think it's a package. Looking at the way COVID pandemic panned out to be, you needed a multifaceted approach in addressing vis-a-vis closure of our surrounding borders and also the measures that were put at the KIA. If you noticed, most of our cases were imported from abroad. And so the measures that were put in there was really to curtail the importation of COVID into the country. And also, if you look at the borders, the measures that were put there were also to curtail the importation of COVID to us. And the local measures also were trying to stop the prevention or the transmission if we had COVID in country. So if you look at all these factors and the measures that were put in place, I think that's what the president had come to address. And we know that, look, for all the cases, the local transmissions that we got for the country actually came from out. The need for us to wear gloves, to do social distancing, the need for us to stop some of our social gatherings that we're doing, were all informed by the number of cases that we're having. And so if you look at the holistic measures that we put in place, and vis-a-vis what is happening globally, and we know in terms of vaccination, I think you come there. If you look at the vaccination rates for the global community, especially for the Western countries, they are far ahead of us. They are even thinking about second, third boosters. And then if you look at what we are having, so for you really to push measures to stop somebody who is doing well in terms of vaccination from coming there, I think that's where the discussions were. So I think that's what the task force together with the service had thought through, and then looking at the figures on the ground, that is what we are. I think the president had actually nailed the hammer on the head of the nail. And for us, some of us in Bunois, if you look at our figures and if you look at what was going on, I mean, most of our cases were imported from Accra and Kumasi. And so you see that in between the weeks, we were quiet. And therefore, we saw that the measures were really needed, especially when we had the surge coming on. So for us, this is what we have been waiting for. And I think the last time we had the discussion, we were talking about people actually not really wearing the mask as was supposed to. And of course, look, if for consistent 1 month, you have been getting no case every day, you see the drive is not really there. If the cases are surrounding countries are also going down and then recording zero, and I think then those need of you locking the borders were not needed. And then the people who are coming in.
But Doc, we still have cases. We still have active cases. I mean, the numbers may have fallen, but we still have active cases. And especially considering that we have a new variant, in fact, a new strain of the Omicron variant, aka BA2, on the prowl, which it may not necessarily cause more sickness, but it is even more transmissible. And now with the reopening of our land borders and people who are going to be coming into the country from all angles, by air, by land, and all of that, and also taking away the mask wearing protocols, or saying, so to speak, that it is not mandatory. Already in your region, we have the experience. People were not using the masks. Now that you even say that it's not mandatory, I mean, looking at this pot of measures, are we not exposing ourselves?
I mean, we have to take it in context. For example, where we are even having the new variant forms coming, the level of vaccination, even to the extent of the booster, is way high above what you have now. So if you look at that dynamics, and therefore you don't want that person to come to your country. And then you see, it doesn't make academic or scientifically plausible thing to do. And we are not saying that we are going loose, free for all. No, he gave in the parameters. One of them, that the person coming in from these countries should be fully vaccinated.
Right.
That is one of them. So it's not like a blank check for everybody. Secondly, if you don't fall into that category, then you will have to provide the mandatory PCR test. And upon arrival, you will do the antigen. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to take into consideration people who are doing the things that they are supposed to do and the others. And then we also offer for people who have not been vaccinated. So these are all measures that has been put in place. So in also easing all these, he has also listed some measures that have been put in place. And we know, looking at the trajectory of how the pandemic has panned out, and I always talk about Bono East, we are always safe when Accra, Kumasi is safe. We are always safe when people coming from the outside, arriving at KIA are safe. And in fact, we were proposing that, look, anytime we had surges in Kumasi, Accra, then we will just have to heighten the need for us to what? Go onto the mandatory.
Right. Quick one, Doc. Pardon the interjection, but I want to find out. On the back of all of these things we're saying, the vaccination cards, he says mass gatherings are back. You can do what you want, as many people as possible, like would have at a rally, at some other event, I mean, nightclubs and all of that. But the bit about checking vaccination cards, is that going to be as easy as we paint the picture? Is it a practical step? Because mind you, still millions have not been vaccinated. And he spoke about June this year so that we can meet the deadline. It appears we've been rolling over the deadline time and again. Of course, we've had our own challenges. But it's been rolled over again. Many millions of Ghanaians have still not been vaccinated. Now, some people have also not been vaccinated, but they have secured vaccination cards, okay, through fraudulent means. They are also in the system. And then the bit about expecting that at these mass events, there are going to be the appropriate checks to check everybody. Let's say 10,000 people are going for an event. To expect that all of them are going to be checked wherever the institution is. I mean, what are the dynamics there? What are the fears that we should be considering?
Solutions to it.
Hello, Doc.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I lost you for a moment.
Okay, so I'm saying that the questions that you are posing are legitimate, that I think we have to think through. But then we have to look at the dynamic nature of the circumstances that we are discussing. It comes back to people being responsible and being each other's keeper. You remember during the time that the president came with this mandate of mandatory mask wearing, and then a lot of people were saying that, look, the security forces should make sure they enforce it. People were coming to Ghana Health Service to say, look, you guys will have to enforce that. We were not enforcers. But I always was talking to my countrymen in Bono East that, look at the police force in Bono East. If they are supposed to stop other equal important duties of stopping crime, chasing other things, just for people to wear masks, then it means that we have not understood, and therefore we are not playing our part as citizens. Because look, this issue that we have is a collective idea and contribution. So if you are going to have an event, then the onus lies on you to make sure that people who are coming are actually vaccinated. Because look, when you do that, you are protecting yourself and you are protecting your community. That is the idea that we look at. Even as Joy FM now, somebody who is going to ensure that all of us are vaccinated. This issue of people getting fraudulent cards, it's not only here. You remember what happened in Germany, where they busted people who had the COVID card which were faked ones. That's the human institution. But because of that, we stop living the life that we are supposed to. We need to put in mechanisms in place, all of us, and make sure. So me as a regional director, I'll make sure that, look, if you are going to enter my premise, then you have to be vaccinated and show a proof. And
very quickly, as I move on to other guests, I just want to find out, how are you going to do that? What measures have you put in place that will enable you to do this, to do what you're saying?
Random checks, and then when people are expecting that at any point in time, people will look, let me tell you what can happen. I can just collect somebody's card, show it to you at the gate and enter. But whilst you are in, if we have random checks, let's look at all of us, our vaccination cards. Obviously, we'll be able to nab some people in the bad and then they are exposed. We should have mechanisms of the universities, you have to show. The schools, you have to show.
Okay.
And I like what the president said. If you are going to go for any visa application or go to any embassy for your visa and all, you have to show. Sports stadium, if you want to go and watch Kotoko and Haas, we should make sure that people show their card and also have a way of checking for them to see that you cannot beat. It's difficult.
All right.
It's become part of us. We'll be able to address it and then move on.
Doc, hold on for me briefly. Let me bring in Clement Boateng, first vice at Gov't. Mr. Boateng, thank you so much for joining us. How happy are you? What is your reaction to the reopening of our land borders, easing of restrictions, especially at the KIA? How does Gov't react to the 28th address on COVID-19? Do we have Clement Boateng with us? Mr. Boateng, if you can hear me. All right, it appears we've lost Mr. Boateng. We'll try to reconnect with him. Let me bring in Peter Sedufia, a movie producer. Peter, hopefully the connection is better now. What is your quick response to the 28th address by Mr. President, especially concerning, generally, but also especially concerning your work in terms of the cinematic industry?
All right. Good morning. Good morning to your listeners and your viewers. As a matter of fact, it's a pleasure to hear that people are free to now go to the cinemas in their number, no restrictions, because that is what we've been waiting for. Of course, we are not, by saying that, we are not being selfish, because it's a global pandemic, and we all need to put our hands together in fighting it. So that's what we've done. And so if the time is right for us to get back to work and start earning our livelihood, it's just right that we'll be happy those bans have been lifted, especially on the cinema terrain, because you know that even the cinema we have does not have so much room for a lot of people to watch the film, which is already a problem for us. So to even smash it by an additional 50% is even grave. So now that the president says the cinema can take full capacity, it's the news that we welcome with open arms.
What are you going to do, especially as a movie producer, to ensure that while the numbers are accepted now, that you put in place certain control mechanisms so that, we're still in the midst of COVID-19, so we don't have to go back to the times we've been in where even cinemas were closed and all of that. The president did mention that mass gatherings accepted, but let's check vaccination cards and all of that. How are you going to be able to do that as a movie producer?
Well, for me as a movie producer, I want to be sincere with you. Hardly would I be able to check that thing. I can only advertise when I'm advertising my movie or when I'm promoting my movie that people should ensure to have their vaccination card or have their nose mask on because the mass gathering. The cinema is responsibility to ensure those things are, because they are space, so it becomes their responsibility to ensure that those vaccination cards are on the patrons. And so they have to, and I know that for several cinema, for instance, I've been there a couple of times. They've already had systems in place to even trace people, to make sure that people are wearing the nose mask, make sure people write down their names when they enter the cinema, just for contact tracing purposes. They make sure people sanitize the washroom, everything has sanitizer. So I'm sure that just ensuring that people are wearing, are having vaccination card is not going to be an arduous task compared to what they were doing previously. So I think this will either be the easiest for them or one of the easiest for them. And I'm sure they are up to task. But for me as a producer, I can only put that in my campaigns, that people should ensure, so that's the public awareness or the education, that people should ensure to have their vaccination cards with them before going.
Right. Peter, I was speaking more from the standpoint, I understand that the cinemas will have to do the job when it comes to people entering those locations. But I was talking more about your work as a movie producer. As you go about producing your movies, are you going to be ensuring that people are meeting certain criteria when it comes to the protocols? Yes,
I get your point.
Mask wearing has been taken off. I mean, it's basically, it's not mandatory. But what are you going to be doing to ensure that even from set, people are doing the right thing?
I mean, we've been ensuring already on set that people are doing the right thing. They are in their nose mask when they are not. To be honest, when an actor is talking to another actor, they will not be wearing nose masks. They have to take off their nose masks and stuff. So we're already in that practice for quite some time now, when the first restrictions were lifted for us to get back to work. And so this additional vaccination information is just something that we would try to ensure our actors and crew live up to. Of course, some of them are vaccinated. For me, for instance, I've vaccinated, taking my 2 shots, and even taking the booster. So, there are a lot of other people that have also gone through the same process. There are others that have not gone through the same that process. So they will be encouraged to wear their nose mask. And I've not read anywhere that it's now mandatory to vaccinate. I cannot force them to go get a vaccination card.
But are you going to consider? Are you going to consider encouraging them? Are you going to consider encouraging them to get vaccinated, because that also protects you, protects other people who may be vulnerable? Are you going to at least suggest it?
Yes, we will have a conversation with them. I mean, we've seen some of the people that have vaccinated, some that have not vaccinated, and we just encourage people that it's not just about you. It's about the next person next to you. Probably you don't care that you will get the virus. How about the person that's next to you that may care that they may get the virus? You just infect an innocent person. So we encourage them to get a vaccination. Nonetheless, we cannot force them to do that. So if you are not vaccinated, we just have to make sure that you are always with your nose mask, you are always sanitizing, and you are always following the precautions or the directives to ensure that you do not endanger another person's life. But we are doing our best to make sure that all our cast and crew get vaccination. Like I said, we cannot force them. We can only impress upon them and appeal to their conscience to do that for the safety of every other person around them.
Right. Right before I go back to Mr. Boateng and Doc as well, I'd just like to find out from you. We've got to the point where these measures at a point became very necessary. If the numbers go up again, and we have to go back, for example, whether a lockdown situation, I mean, this is just hypothetical, or get back to the restrictions, how would you receive that?
Okay, so anyway, because of the pandemic, a lot of us, or a lot of my fellows have also devised other ways to still continue making films irrespective of the restrictions in place. And so we've devised new ways to do that. So if there's another restriction, we are just simply going to move to the new ways that we develop. Of course, for now, we are combining both the old ways and the new ways. And so if there's a need to go back to the new way alone and ignore the old ways, I think we are ready. The first time it happened, we are not ready for it. We have already been used to a certain way of doing things, certain system of doing things. And so when that system was blocked, we became so stranded and very confused and frustrated. But with time, we adopted, and then we devised other means to still go about the same activity. And so now that the restrictions have been lifted fully, we are going to be combining our new ways that we've learned plus the old ways that we were used to. And if the restrictions come again, we'll just ignore or abandon the old ways and stick to the new ways. So I think for now, yes, I would say that we are more or less prepared to for any eventuality. Of course, unless another pandemic that we have not experienced before, that will also more or less affect the new ways that we have. Then we would find a way to develop another new way to counter it.
All right. You'll definitely have to improvise. Mr. Peter Sedufia there, a movie producer. Peter, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me now bring in Dr. Kwame Sapong-Esio, the research fellow with the CDD. What's your quick reaction to yesterday's 28th address? Land borders open, mask wearing not mandatory, and maybe the bit about meeting our vaccination target of 20 million by June, another extension. Quick reactions to those.
Thanks, and good morning. My quick reaction is this. I mean, in any disease state, the problem for public health managers is the link between infection, hospitalization, and death. Once that link is established, health managers have to do something about it. And that is why you have things like social distancing and other things coming in. So at the onset, that came in. Then the next level becomes, what else can we do to break this, which might be either treatment or vaccinations. So when treatments came in, they were not as effective. So link wasn't broken. There was a high probability that if you got infected, you get hospitalized, and unfortunately, you could get severely ill and die. Now we have vaccines, and that link has been broken. I mean, there's data from close to 13 billion doses to show that that link has been broken. And therefore, it has become non-prudent to use what you call restrictive measures on their own to control the pandemic, because the balance has to be between the public health measures and the economic implications. At this point, the balance is tipping more towards the economic implications. Because I tell you what, no one would close a country because malaria exists, neither would they do it because yellow fever or typhoid exists, because there are treatments, there are vaccinations for them. So for me, the president making that announcement was spot on. What we are left with now is to ensure that the dynamics that ensures that that link is broken are implemented, and that's our vaccination. And so for me, the challenge the Ghana Health Service has now that the president has made this announcement is how to ensure that the 20 million people are vaccinated, not just that, but knowing that immunity wanes after about 6 months, to ensure that boosters can be efficiently employed so that our population immunity is high. Because if our population immunity drops, then you have the added implications of imported infections, especially with our land borders open. So that's my quick reaction.
We have BA2 on the prowl, a strain of the Omicron variant, with this free-for-all that has been given us, and with a call to check vaccination cards. How practical is it? I mean, are we going to be able to do this?
And I've always said, the strains of viruses would always come. I mean, as we speak now, there's a new strain of the flu virus. They would always come. The point is, are the vaccines efficient and effective against them? The information suggests it is. I mean, the new strain was isolated in the UK and in Germany. But the UK is totally opened up now. Why? Because when people get infected, it's not impacting on hospitalization, it's not impacting on severe disease, and it's not impacting on mortality, unless, of course, you have underlying conditions. And we've come to the point where human beings have to be prudent as well by knowing that, yes, the president might have said face masks are not mandatory, but if you're vulnerable or you've not been vaccinated, or even if you've been vaccinated, it may be prudent to wear your face mask. We've gotten to the point where public health common sense must determine what we do and what we do not. So much as I have issues with, we will check vaccination study, because I've raised my hand and say, I've been in Ghana, I've come for a number of funerals. Even so, I am not going to dwell on them. But I say, if you know you're not vaccinated, you have a high probability because for you, the link between infection and mortality still exists. And you have the high probability that that might lead to hospitalization and death.
Right.
So be sensible and wear your face mask.
Let me go to Clement Boateng, first vice of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Clement, how did you receive the news yesterday? Joy?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I think when the news broke up, it was very welcoming and refreshing since most or some of our members, are engaged in this land border trade or cross-border trade. When the borders was closed, I think almost 2 years ago, it brought a very negative impact on those of our members who are engaged in this cross-border trade. But we also know that the borders were closed as some of the measures, to contain this pandemic. So we had no option but to wait till this time that the president, has lifted this closure of the borders. I think it's a welcome news. We are all aware that for some time now, some of the people, living on these border areas, have gone on, demonstration because they also, depend on the commercial activities that happens on this borders. So reopening of the borders is a welcome news. It's very refreshing, and those of our members who are engaged on these cross-border activities, they will really enjoy it, and then we think their businesses will come back to normal once again.
Do you have any concerns? For example, now the wearing of masks is not mandatory and all of that. Are you concerned in any way? I mean, because if there's another spike, we might end up, regressing or going back to some of those stringent measures. Do you have any fears or concerns on that?
I think we are all aware that most countries, have begun, relaxing or reviewing some of these protocols. And I think those also advising the president thought it wise that it's about time that this mask should be made mandatory.
Right.
Shouldn't be mandatory. But I think, in my own opinion, I would have wished that at least wearing of this mask should have, continued till the end of the year. By that time, then we will be in the position to know the exact situation of the pandemic. It is true that it is going down, and that is the more reason why countries are beginning to relax or review the protocols. But in my own opinion, I would have wished that it should have been continued to the end of the year.
It should have been continued to the end of the year. My final bit to you, Mr. President says he hopes these measures will help to create jobs. Do you think it will result in those?
Definitely, because like I told you, people, living around those areas do have some, commercial activities that they depend on. And since these borders were closed, all those commercial activities came to a halt, thereby, I would say, leading to no job creation. So once it has been, reopened this time around, all those businesses are going to, come back. So a lot more people are going to get jobs, and I think it will be good, for them.
Clement Boateng, thank you so much for joining the conversation. We're grateful that you joined the conversation. I'm going to wrap with Dr. Akufo-Addo and Dr. Adomako Boateng. But I'll start with you, Dr. Adomako Boateng. So a pointed question to both of you. Now we are where we are. People were calling for this. We have them now. What do we do moving forward to protect ourselves, to protect our country? What do we do? I'll start with you, Dr. Adomako Boateng.
Thank you. This is the time that we have to really lift up our vaccination campaign. I mean, prevention, as we see, is better than cure. And from the lessons that we have learned from COVID, the best option, looking at human limitation, is the vaccination. So I think all of us will have to come on deck and then begin to make sure that we sound this for almost everybody to hear that, look, looking at what we have gone through, the best option now is for vaccination. So if those of us who have not been vaccinated, this is the right time for us to go for the vaccines. That is what I would say.
All right, so a quick top up, and I hope Dr. Sapong Asiedu will be brief as well. A quick top up. So just to break it down, our vaccination rate stands at 16% now. Is it prudent that, especially considering we're nowhere near herd immunity, is it prudent these reactions? Just to get a recap of what you said. It appears we don't have Dr. Addo Akufo-Addo. Do we have?
Oh, I'm on. Okay,
that was directed at you, actually.
Oh, okay. So that's what we are looking at. And these measures are taken looking at holistic factors. We are looking at maybe 28 days after the huge surge. We are looking at the rate of transmission with a gauge of looking at Greater Accra and Kumasi.
Okay.
And other regions. We are looking at where we import the cases from, and then that will sustain the local transmission.
Right.
When you look at all these factors, I would say that that is the right decision to take.
Okay.
And then not only taking that decision.
Very briefly now.
Are dynamic.
Right.
There is a need also for vigilance.
Right.
And looking as you implement. That is what I would say.
Doc, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Fred Addo Akufo-Addo, Bono East Director of Health, speaking to us. Let's wrap with Dr. Kwame Sapong Asiedu. Your final bite on those self-same issues as we wrap in just about a minute, if you can manage it.
Is we are where we are. You need to be vigilant. The president has made the political health decision. Now you need to make the prudent personal decision around self-protection, self-preservation, and vaccination. And you need to positively affect those around you to ensure that they get vaccinated. That is the only way around it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kwame Sapong Asiedu, fellow, research fellow with the CDD. And that is our conversation on this bit. We'll go back to Michael Ashale, Papani, as we call him, from the streets of Circle. Papani, if you can hear me, what are people's reactions?
How about you? How did it affect you, the closure of the border?
It affected everywhere. It affected everybody because now you can't travel. You can't travel. You are facing many things in road. Because I hear say they have already opened the border. I'm very happy. I'm very happy for that. Thank you.
So for your business, what would this mean to you? Let's say before COVID-19, how often were you traveling between Nigeria and Ghana? And because of the closure, how did it also impact that travel?
The part of the travel is most of all these company motor, where some people that have their park inside, even GIG, God is good, and GUO, God is great, and all these Shisco. They affect us because they are not traveling again. Even to bring goods from Nigeria to here is very hard. But we're praying, if this thing can, like the way they open the border, if it's true, everybody is everybody can laugh.
So let me ask again. So what do you trade in here in Ghana?
Well, I'm into phone accessories.
So say before COVID-19, how much were you making? I mean, given the number of goods that you also getting?
Before COVID-19, I've been making a lot. But after this, let's say because of this border, things are hard to go and bring goods and bring it here. The money is supposed to buy the goods. The transportation is very costly than the money you buy the goods. You see, so that's why.
So Pascal is also one happy Nigerian that finally the land borders have opened. Chief, what's your name?
My name is Mr. Austin Emmanuel.
Okay, Austin Emmanuel. Yes. So Austin, you've been very vociferous about this, that, well, you are finally happy. Do you think that it's taking too long to be opened?
It took more than a long interval of time, starting from the year 2020 to 2022. It was very, very outrageous to us, especially the businessmen, because the movement was interfered with. There is no longer fast movement based on going to Nigeria, going to Togo, going to Mali, all these countries to import goods. This affected us, actually. Recently, I traveled to Nigeria. It was a very dangerous experience. Traveling with my wife and the family with a flying boat. What if the boat sink? It will be a dangerous story to me and the family. So the closure of border affected even every living soul in West Africa. It affected all. Because normally, I don't base on only accessory business. You can go to Nigeria, bring clothes, you bring it here, you sell. When the exchange is good here, you can bring things here. When it is good in Nigeria, you can go to Nigeria and buy. But this thing crashed everything. Everything was crashed. And that is, I think, this contributed to 100% of the hardship in Nigeria and Ghana. Even the presidents and all these, our politicians, they know. Because normally, even ordinary layman, an average man can travel to Nigeria with 1,000 cedis and he can buy things. Depends on the exchange rate. But this closure of border crashed everything. So many of us, our passports expired. Not that we cannot travel again, but they closed border. So you can't travel to renew it. But as they have opened the border, I think yesterday it was a glorious news to every citizen, both Ghana and Nigeria. So I really appreciate it.
So in terms of the quantum of items that you were selling, how much you were going to bring and stuff, I mean, before COVID-19, how did that look like? How did that business look like?
COVID is a mess. COVID is a serious mess. Before this COVID of 18 and the closure of a border, we were bringing more than excess. Because the border was free. That time you take company cars, GUO, Ego, some other company cars. There was no disturbances so far as you're having passports. But now it's like a smuggling way. It's like you are smuggling goods. So it was a risk. And as a result of that, considering the risk of customs service, immigration, and all these things. So you can go there with only your bag. For someone like me, I stopped bringing anything. Because in a situation whereby you'll be arrested by a custom officer or an immigration officer. So considering the expenses and the profit you are making, I have to stop everything. That is the truth.
Emmanuel, I'll come back and ask you how we can make the experience for you better in Ghana, especially after the opening of the border. Let me go back to Chinedu. So Chinedu, what do you also trade in?
Me, I'm a food vendor, so it'll be food. So for me, I see the thing my brother was saying is the way the thing is. So me, I don't have nothing much because my goods they don't bring in from Nigeria, it'll be from Ghana, yeah, from Kumasi, yeah, sometimes.
But have you traveled home in these 2 years?
No, I'm not traveled.
And that's because the border was closed?
But some people that traveled, so I've heard news about how they risk their life from from water. Because some people take a flying boat. So me, I've never traveled.
You never traveled then because of it was closed. But now that it's open, are you looking at traveling home?
If I can travel, maybe like from now 2 years in time or this year. So I can travel.
Wonderful. Chinedu, let me go back here. Boss, are trying to wrap up. So how can we better the experience now that the borders are open? It's going to be a mad rush, definitely. But since you've been using that, what advice would you say that probably we should put this in place, making the experience between crossing the border into Ghana a much better experience?
The experience that let them bring all some, because now from Aflawo to Accra, they are warriors. Even the money we are using before from Aflawo to Accra, you can pay 45 cedi. But now I took 2.5. Day before yesterday, I came back. They collect 2.5 from me. 2.5. It's too much. It's too much.
So what does that want us to do about it? Is it the transport fares or the monies that you have to hand over to some other people whilst you are making this journey?
The transport fare. The transport fare, let it be the same price they be before. And all this now, money, to change money to Naira to cedis, it's very costly. People cannot send money again because everything is very high. Let them bring everything in order. They open the border. Let them do everything together.
Thank you very much. Let me wrap up with Emmanuel. So, Emmanuel, your brothers have spoken to me. He says that the exchange rate and the cost of transportation. I mean, aside the opening of the border was good news, that's going to be another big blow to his business. So, how better should the experience be once that we've opened the border? What do you expect?
As they have opened the border, I think things are going to normalize again. Based on me, the time I used to travel, I picked direct car. So when I reach Aflo, they'll just check my documents. If I'm eligible to cross, I cross. So now I think things have come back to normal. No longer hiding, passing through the bush, passing through the water. I think all these are risks. Now you just pick a company car here. You pay your money that is required from you. So far as your passport is okay, you will go to your place. So I think it's a very good thing. I'm very, very happy. Forget the monetary issue. Life.
And that was Michael Papani Ashali, my colleague from the streets of Circle. We take a bit of a breather, and when we return, we have our interaction with former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ivan Addae-Mensah. We'll be right back.